Meanwhile, Southwest Airlines has already cancelled more than 2,300 flights just today, about 58% of its daily schedule. This after more than 2,500 flights were cancelled yesterday and 11,000 over the past week. Many passengers say they still have not received refunds for cancelled flights, even after being told to do so by the Department of Transportation. The Southwest Airlines pilots and flight attendants unions say the meltdown was avoidable and that they've been warning the airline for years to upgrade its outdated systems. The pilots union released a statement that reads in part, "For more than a decade, leadership shortcomings in adapting, innovating and safeguarding our operations have led to repeated systems disruptions, countless disappointed passengers and millions in lost profits." The Transportation Workers Union blasted the company for paying shareholders, quote, huge dividends instead of investing in their passengers and workers. The airline apologised again yesterday and pledged to, quote, do everything to make it right. Joining us now, the president of Transport Workers Union Local 556, which represents Southwest Airlines flight attendants, Lynn Montgomery. Lynn, thank you very much for joining us. What went wrong, according to you?
Well, it's just another epic failure of all operational failures. This has happened before in January 2014, February 2015, December 2015, July 2016, October 2021, April 2022, and now December 2022. So the company has had a lot of notice that we have had issues with inclement weather and also technology. Flight attendants have named these events. We call them Snowmageddon. We've had Technado. I mean, this needs to be resolved, and this better be the operational failure to end all Southwest operational failures.
So, Lynn, tell us a little bit more about some of the technological shortcomings. There have been reports the last few days that pilots as well as flight attendants from your union couldn't get through for hours upon hours upon hours to figure out where their next assignment was going to be and how they'd get there. Talk to us about the breakdown you had that Southwest experienced in terms of staffing.
Well, this isn't a staffing breakdown at all. The flight attendants and staff were all ready to work, and we had plenty of people available. What happened was when the company had to make massive cancellations and maybe didn't even make enough cancellations going into the cities where there's inclement weather. Once that happened, they made enough scheduling changes, and there's an old methodology that flight attendants and pilots actually have to speak to a crew scheduler, meaning that they have a manual process involved, which meant that they couldn't get in touch with all the flight attendants they needed to when they needed to get in contact with them.
Mike Barnicle.
Lynn, let's stipulate that this was an historic storm. And let's stipulate that everyone knows once a hub goes down, like Denver or Chicago or Atlanta, that the entire system backs up from coast to coast. But with that in mind, and given what has happened since the storm seeded, JetBlue, Delta, American, you name it, they're up and flying. So what makes Southwest different?
So the systems that we use are different, and it's an older methodology. We also fly a hybrid of point to point, and then we have mega stations, which means that instead of having hub and spoke returning back to certain cities where people have to connect from, Southwest can offer routings where people don't even have to touch some of these big central cities that you have to make connections through, and it can offer some better services through some of the smaller cities across America. And that's one of the things that's made Southwest Airlines very successful. However, it does make it hard to recover because you may not have the capability to put airplanes and crew back into locations that don't have the bad weather or don't have the disruptions.
All right, well, this is a story that's certainly not disappearing from the headlines. Passengers still stranded, luggage lost. We will be talking more about it. We appreciate President of Transport Workers Union Local 556, which represents Southwest Airlines flight attendants, Lynn Montgomery. We appreciate you being with us this morning. Let's some of the morning's opinion pages tackle the Southwest story. Let's start with the Washington Post. Its editorial board says Southwest put investors ahead of its customers and employees. writing in part this: what's particularly egregious is the fact that Southwest had the money to upgrade systems, but chose to hand it to the shareholders instead. The airline recently announced it would pay a dividend again that amounts to $428 million a year. Southwest also received more than $7 billion from the U.S. federal government to shore up its operations during the pandemic. It paid a quarterly dividend for years before the coronavirus struck, signaling to Wall Street that the airline had cash to spare. In other words, given a choice, Southwest put its investors ahead of its customers and crew. Its logo was in the shape of a heart, and its stock symbol is LOVE, L-U-V. All of that, as well as Southwest's bottom line, has now been put at risk by its leadership's short-sighted decisions to ignore needed investments while tending to investors. The editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, on the other hand, is warning against federal involvement. It writes in part, the scheduling meltdown at Southwest Airlines is one for the business record books, and the carrier will pay a price for months or years in damaged reputation. The only worst result for seating passengers would be to put Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg in charge. Democrats care less about stranded passengers than they do about gaining more federal control over the airline industry. Washington receded from airline management in the 1970s, and the ensuing competition opened air travel to the masses. Politicians love to kick an industry when it's down, but passengers can take their market revenge on Southwest without political help that will make air travel worse and more expensive. So we've got some dueling viewpoints there. Let's bring in the co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box, Aaron Ross Sorkin, to weigh in. So Andrew, talk to us about what you're hearing about Southwest. What's next in terms of oversight or, as that editor put it, passenger revenge?
Well, look, I would just start with this. We keep talking about Southwest as if this is a Southwest-specific problem, and it is in this instance. But I think there's a larger issue, which is to say, you look at the deregulation, which the Wall Street Journal mentioned in that editorial that you were just reading from, over the last 30, 40-plus years. Not only was the industry deregulated, there was remarkable consolidation that took place. And that has created this almost oligopoly, in certain cases, monopoly kind of power that has led to incentives, or in this case, disincentives for companies like Southwest, which used to compete on price and used to compete on brand. But so much of that competition has withered away because there hasn't been that type of competition in years. So many of the slotting systems at airlines airports across the country are controlled by airlines, so that there isn't that type of competition, which would force a Southwest or others to invest in these type of things. You look at what's happening in Europe. They have created a Bill of Rights where, if you're a consumer and your flight is delayed or gets canceled, they pay a hefty penalty. But at the same time, there's competition in that marketplace that has forced those airlines to actually try to help those customers in a way that they haven't in the United States. So we can blame the airlines themselves, and they deserve a lot of that blame. But we also have to, I think, look at the larger system. And as we start talking about Bill of Rights and all sorts of other things, you have to also take into consideration the competition perspective. Otherwise, what we're going to do is actually just raise prices across the board, because these costs are not going to just be borne by shareholders. They'll be borne by customers.
Mike Barnicle, weigh in.
Andrew, I hesitate to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to personalize this. Please. It seems to me, and I fly a lot out of LaGuardia, out of Logan and Boston into Washington National, airports across the country. Somehow it seems that 10 to 15 years ago, flying commercial was much more pleasant experience than it is today. Am I right or wrong?
I think that you're right in terms of the experience. Now, part of the experience I think we've all lived through is a post 9/11, and now we're going back. We're going back even more time, in part because of the security measures that have taken place that make just getting through the whole process that much harder. But I think there's also the issue of just how many people are on those planes and what happens on those planes. I don't disagree with you, but again, I would argue to you, over the last 15 years, that's a function of the lack of competition to actually make that experience great. I remember the first time, I make it personal for me, remember when JetBlue first started. That was one of those most remarkable experiences. People would say, can you believe what they're doing here? Well, yeah, but guess what? Now JetBlue has been merged with, and everybody else is merged, and so that kind of competition doesn't exist in the same way.
Okay, CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin, thank you for that.